How do you measure the success of your design work?
That's a really difficult question. And I talk about this with my team, and we think about how we can measure such things because it's challenging. When you think about product organizations that have regular rollouts, they're fixing bugs at the same time of potentially releasing new features. And now, if we're fixing bugs and releasing a new design of one particular feature, how then do we measure, was it the bug fix or was it the new or the updated design that led to maybe an improvement in user satisfaction? I mean, we of course use NPS, but it's a lagging indicator, right? It's like we generally try to rely on as much qualitative information as possible. So user interviews either through internal users, because our own users are our first line of testing because they use our products. So we can get, they're not a perfect solution, but it can at least give us a basically a baseline. Like, are we on a right path based on the positive feedback from this feature? And then of course testing it with actual real users. Right now, that is among the best way we can truly understand. Now we also can link it to our data tracking systems, analytics, and think, okay, well, we can potentially correlate that with like, okay, we're seeing an uptick in delight perhaps around some feature. It's like, are we seeing then those metrics increase, the weekly active users? Do we see a greater degree of adoption now because we've maybe solved some challenge that made it difficult? So it's kind of a multi-tier approach, and we have to really look, I think, between the lines in a way. I don't think we have any one type of data point that really can then say this design was successful or a failure.
Mhm. Do you think there is a huge role of intuition? You just feel that you're moving in the right direction, or it's always about just trying to have numbers that support your decisions?
Yeah, and I also tend to I think about, so Jared Spool, pretty big name in the space, right? It's like I remember him making a comment something around that, around sort of like these almost vanity metrics, that he was not super big on these on the idea of metrics for the sake of having metrics. And I think behind that there's some meaning to that. It, like, if you can say, well, the success of this mobile app is because the weekly active users increased, but is that really true? I mean, if you think about a specific use case for like a, maybe it provides an assistant kind of capability for salespeople, would increased usage of that necessarily be a means of knowing that it's more successful? Well, not necessarily, right? Because they're in front of their laptops. When would they use this mobile app? Maybe when they're on site, maybe when they're in an airport and they're traveling to meet a customer, then they would use it. And so what I think about sometimes is that we have to think about ways of measuring critical moments, so, and how would we measure a critical moment? So in that situation, which is not necessarily the frequency of users, the adoption of the tool, but did it solve a problem in a critical moment? Can we measure that? I'm not sure we truly can yet, and I think that's where the qualitative aspect comes in. We have to, interview. We have to then understand and hear. It's like, hey, this mobile app. Oh my God, I don't use it much, but in this one moment, it saved the deal. Yeah, to me, that would be like, wow, that was a success.
Yeah, and also sometimes if you measure just an in-app interaction, you forget that maybe the best way to notify user was email or other
Yeah,
types of communication, or maybe just not distracting people because people hate that they got notifications, they opened the app, and it was nothing useful for them. So
absolutely,
you got more usage, but in case you killed the experience.
absolutely.
There was a time when designers had to sell what they do to others. I
Mm.
just came from the conference on AI from Montreal, and people always ask me, "What do you do, guys?" And I have to tell like what I do 20 times a day, for example. It's very interesting because there are so many ways you can tell what do you do as a designer. Do you have your favorite way to describe the value you and your team provides to the company? Like what's, because
Mm.
you can tell about business metrics, you can tell about user engagement. What would be your approach?
That's a good question, and I think back not that many years ago, I had worked for an organization that was of lower UX maturity, and so it was sort of like that. It's like we had these pockets of teams that sort of understood what me and my team did, and then others who like, "Are you a graphic designer?" you know, and having to sort of justify that. So, and even when I think about it, just outside of the field, like explaining to, friends, family, friends, what do I do? I tend to think about it very basically. I work to solve problems. I solve problems. I think about because users have needs, they want to accomplish something, they can't. Either the feature doesn't exist, or the product doesn't even exist to solve this problem. And so I think about it like I help to solve problems in the form of design and product design. And that's what I do. And then if there's interest, if it sort of piques interest, I then go a little deeper and say like, well, it's like I understand I want to understand the behaviors. There's the cognitive science aspect of it. There's the design aspect. But I think a lot of us probably have had those challenges of trying to explain what we do, especially in those organizations or within even those meetings. Like you could be the sole designer in a group of product managers and engineers who maybe have never really worked in sort of a user-centered design process. The first thought is like, oh, well, you're the graphic designer. You'll make what we decide pretty. I'm like, well, no, that's not what we do. I mean, that's one thing we can do, certainly, but it's we help to solve problems.
That's about strategy, perhaps, yeah, because you're not expecting that somebody will tell you what to do, even like finding the problem, because sometimes people don't know what is their problem, and it can go even over.
Hmm.
Uh, I like this approach. I will borrow it from you from time to time. What I learned myself, it depends with whom you have discussion. If it's technical persons, they're interested in one part of design, like collaboration with developers. If it's a business person, they are interested in competitive advantages. So you also need to understand who is your user, with whom you
Absolutely.
communicate. What helps us from our design education, that we need to understand exact person for whom we are providing the experience.
Absolutely. I would say that is a critical growth need for anybody in this space. Any product designer, UX designer needs to be able to understand their audience and communicate. Exactly as you said. Business people communicate and KPIs and business outcomes and what and annual recurring revenue. Understand how the introduction of this feature can positively affect the ARR of a company. Engineers understand the APIs. Maybe you don't have to be able to code it, but be able to speak their language. Those that are able to do that, from my experience, are far more successful in terms of really educating and advocating for their designs.